Hey everybody, this is Rob and Jordan, and we are back, and this is Archangel Inc. Live number 30, I think. Is that right, Jordan?
30, yeah, we're all the way up to 30. That's
Look at
exciting.
that. Hot dang.
Yeah, I
That's
like
good.
it.
That's good.
Good stuff.
Tonight we are going to be talking about possibly the worst time to launch a book. Maybe not.
Yeah.
We'll see. That was our fun little header in our email. But book launch during a pandemic. You know, it's the age of coronavirus at the moment, and so we're getting these questions. We're dealing this with this question. In our own business, and a lot of other authors that we're in contact with are kind of grappling with this too. So the big question that we want to look at tonight is, should I proceed with a book launch during this time when there's so much uncertainty, or should we wait and hold off? And how do we know when the time is to move? And that's kind of the spirit of it. But before we start off with that, Jordan, how are you doing? How's the other side of the pond there for you?
I'm doing well over here. It's been raining a lot recently,
Yeah.
So even we have to stay inside because of all the nonsense, and then also, it's raining out, so we can't even go out for a walk. So yeah, definitely a little bit of cabin fever setting in at times, but overall doing well. I enjoy the inside times and just kind of hanging out and planning and working and doing stuff. So it's been good for the most part, but
right on.
Definitely hanging in there. How's it going over there?
Pretty good. It was a good productive day on cool. My end. Had a few projects that I was able to get through, and it's just highlights what we talked about in previous videos, the benefits of some of these different strategies for productivity, and the advantages to kind of being proactive and positive and all of that. So obviously it's difficult, and it's certainly understandable to be anxious, to be stressed, to be not feeling at the top of your game. But to whatever extent that you can kind of marshal those resources and help yourself feel a little bit better, then it's good to do that. And I find that I often feel best when I am when I'm able to kind of just be productive and get stuff done and look back on my day with a sense of accomplishment. So anyway.
Oh yeah, totally. And to add to that real quick, yeah, I think that's totally true. If I found myself wanting to do like the lazy things, like just sitting and reading or just like watching a show, and that it feels like that's what I want. But whenever I go and do something productive and get into it and get something done and feel that sense of accomplishment, it's just a way better way to spend the time for sure.
Yeah. For me, it's really in the moment. Maybe it feels okay, like eating a bunch of candy or something. But afterward, there's the come down. So I would rather not just be engaged in things that are a little just consumptive, I guess, rather than productive or creative. And some sort of balance there is definitely helpful in my case.
Yep.
So cool. All right, so let's jump right in. Is this the worst time to publish? We shall see. So the way I have this organized, the notes here tonight, kind of going to look at kind of the big picture. What are the facts? What do we know? What can we gauge thus far? How are authors and publishers responding? What sort of things are we observing? And then what can we do as authors, as creators? And then finally, kind of the $100,000 question: should I delay my launch if I'm getting ready to do this? So okay, let's see. Big picture is there are lots of unknowns, obviously. This is when this first came up, and we're talking with some of our clients. They're like, hey, what are we going to do? Like people are not are going to be at home, but potentially are they going to be buying more books because they have more free time? Are they going to be buying fewer books just because people's income is more variable, and the belt is kind of tightening? So what does that all look like? The other thing is, we may not know for sure, and we may not know for some time. It's not really, it's not as if this is a singular event that's going to pass. This isn't like, oh, should I launch my book during the NBA finals, or during the Olympics, or during this presidential election time or whatever, and then you can kind of wait and have a sense of when it's going to be over. This potentially could linger for an unforeseen amount of time. So again, the big pro, I would say that people are keeping in mind, or that people are considering, is there's more free time. There's an increase across the board of content being being consumed, people being engaged with different material. Lots of Netflix, probably lots of video games, but also a lot of reading, a lot of writing. A lot of YouTube and other content that some of the folks that we work with tend to be creating. So, that's something to consider. And then the other thing, obviously, the economic uncertainty. And if people have less discretionary income, are they going to be interested in making a move and making a purchase for a book? Do you have any thoughts on any of those to start off with?
No, I just think, I like how we're coming at this. I think, we're trying to answer it the best we can from our perspective and our research and our own thoughts, and just share what we're thinking here. But at the end of the day, we like you said, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. No one does.
Right.
And there's so much, across industries, across, the entire, the economy and the entire world is just questioning a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we're going to try to answer, some questions related to book marketing and books specifically, and do the best we can there. But yeah, that's all I had to add.
Yeah. I will say one thing I think that is to the advantage of authors is, particularly authors like us who are publishing on Kindle. Kindle obviously is a digital device, so those sales are still they can still proceed unabated. The internet is still here. People's web connections generally haven't been affected. So if they had access to digital books beforehand, they still do now. So that's nice. And then in terms of the economic uncertainty part, Kindle has been very deliberate, and we've talked about this before, in trying to price their books basically under $9.99. Between $2.99 and $9.99, and so that is a price point that is potentially accessible for people. Somebody thinking about making a purchase, going out for dinner, which is no longer, maybe as much of an option. You're not going to go spend $100 out, socializing or at a bar or restaurant or something like that. But maybe you'll spend $3 or $5 for something that'll give you a night's worth of entertainment as well. Or maybe more than that, maybe a week's worth of entertainment, if you take your time reading the book. So that is potentially an advantage to the digital book market, and to the Amazon book market. We've just been kind of compelled to be in that price point. And I think that offers us a little more flexibility and bounciness, when it comes to spending decisions.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's that something like this has happened right now, where we have access to online material, videos, books, all these things. In a lot of ways, just gives us a leg up. Like, what if this had happened even 40, 50 years ago? How different it would have been.
Right.
How different we would have been at experiencing that. We can still read. There's the library across the world. We can read Kindle books with just a click. I can download a book. I don't have to wait for it to come to me. And that's really cool. We know this, but in a time like this where everything is changing, having digital products for sale as authors and even just as consumers, having that option is just, there's uncertainty, but then there's some good news there too.
Yeah, exactly. When there's a collapse of a local market, if you have a local based business, it can be harder to pivot and redirect. When you have, a generalized sort of time of economic uncertainty, but you have a global market to lean on, you just have more opportunities, more people who could potentially find your products, find your services, find your digital offerings. And it's just, it has a little bit more resilience, I would say. One other thing I will mention is Dale's in the house. Thanks, Dale, for stopping by and commenting. We're happy to have you. And great to see you in the audience there. Okay, so what are the facts? I just kind of want to summarize it, did a little bit of reading, tried to see what was going on in the news, because I do want to be informed, particularly for the folks that we're working with. And, and for the audience out there, anybody who, is following us, I'd like to have a reasonable assessment of it and not just whatever my gut reaction is and without any further information. So, one of the things we do know, Amazon is deprioritizing physical books for more essential goods. So I know that I went to make a purchase for something, and it gave me, a 4 to 5 week turnaround. And, so that's difficult. A lot of authors are reporting that their print book sales have basically flatlined or largely flatlined. And that is because the way Amazon calculates their print sale, the date of the sale is when it's actually the order is fulfilled, and shipped out.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a consideration. If you have a book that is highly reliant on the print version, if that's a big seller for you, then you might be seeing a more significant variance in your sales and in your income as a result than authors who sell primarily in the digital format or the audio format.
Yep, I can confirm the same. I've seen personal sales of paperback dips. Not too much movement on ebooks, just anecdotally. But yeah, print books, it does seem like they are like you said, they're deprioritizing that. I purchased a book for my dad the other day. I thought it was going to be there pretty quick, and I said, hey, actually, it's going to be there sometime. I think end of this month, and I got it a couple weeks ago. So yeah, very interesting how it is being deprioritized.
Yeah, and that makes sense to some extent. Obviously, it's nice for us as authors and as creators. It's something that we rely on, these sales. But as far as Amazon's concerned, for their purposes, when they're not at full capacity, then making sure that people have food and basic necessities.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. Will understandably be at the top of their queue. So indie print sales as a result have been down. There's another link, and I'll include all of these down below. Kind of the resources that we use to compile this, and what I was looking at. But it's estimated that the KENP is going to be down 5%, and that is, explain what the KENP for folks out there, if you would, Jordan.
Sure, that's the Kindle pages read. I believe that's Kindle. I'm not sure even what the
normalized pages, I think.
Yeah, there you go. I was like trying to remember exactly what it stood for. I know what it means, but yeah, it's the pages read. So if you have your book in KDP Select and someone goes and is part of the KDP Select program, downloads your book and reads pages that KENP is Kindle edition, I believe, normalized pages read added onto the end of that. But yeah, it's the total pages that all of your customers that have downloaded your book through that program have read, and there's a certain percentage you get. You get a certain dollar amount or cents amount per page read.
Yep, and from my understanding, the way it works, and you can jump in if I misrepresented it all. But basically, you have the Kindle Unlimited program. So authors who opt into that it means that there's a monthly fee that all of those readers have access to, or that allows readers to have access to the many thousands, tens of thousands, however many titles are in there, and they can, kind of like Netflix, just watch or in this case read as much as they like from titles that are available within that network. And so the way that they come up with the KENP, the Kindle edition normalized page, something, is they say, okay, how much money did we get for, however many users at $10 a month or whatever the price is. So let's say it's 1 million users at $10 a month. So you have $10 million in revenue. Okay, cool. How many total pages were read over the course of that month or in that period? Divide that by the $10 million, dollars in revenue, and you get that many cents or fractions of a cent per page that is read. And so it is a way to kind of reward authors who have longer books, who have more active readership and more active followership. Whatever's popular and gets kind of the highest ratings ends up earning the highest proportion of sales. That's the way it works. And at least according to this, that's going to be down a little bit compared to last month. And do you have any sense of why that would be, Jordan? Any other information on that?
I think in my experience and from what I remember of this program, I don't have any books currently in KDP Select right now, so I don't check it as much as other types of sales, but I know it does kind of go up and down. I'd be curious to know if it was down just because of what's going on, or if it was just down in general. I know it's gone down before. I wish I knew the trends off the top of my head, like as if it hasn't been going down the past 6 months. I think that would be interesting to know, is this a historic jump, I think that would be a question to ask if you were thinking about putting your book in KDP Select. Is it going to crash and burn? I don't know. I would be curious how much that 5% is pushing it down there.
Yeah. I think my understanding, my speculation based on, what I can read and what I can follow. And by the way, we do have Kindle edition normalized page count. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
And by the way, the reason that the KENPC is important is because different books might have a different number of words per page based on the settings of the user. So you have a normalized page count that allows you to do it. So, if I'm a user and I have my book set in, with the smallest available font, I'm going to have the greatest number of words per page. So one page of my book on my settings is not necessarily going to be equivalent to one page on the next person's settings. And so, they can't just have that, the total overall volume read based on the individual user settings, but instead they came up with something called the normalized page count. And that's kind of how they developed it.
Great point.
Yeah. So anyway, my speculation, and based on what I can tell, is the number of people who are subscribed to Kindle Unlimited didn't necessarily go up, but people are consuming more content now. So, if you have that same $10 million in revenue, but instead of, 1 million pages being read, you have 1.1 million pages being read, then you have that proportional reduction in the amount per page that you are going to earn. So I suspect that it has to do with the higher overall
gotcha.
Sort of demands on the system, but we'll have to, I'll have to look a little bit further into that. So if anybody out there is familiar with that, I've also not elected to have my books available in the Kindle Unlimited program, but authors who have, be happy to hear your comments and thoughts and experiences with that. And know, does that make sense for you? Does it work out? Does it help you find new readers? Does it help you generate additional sales of some of your other titles, perhaps, that are not a part of the Unlimited program? Certainly interested to hear experiences from anybody out there who would care to share. So.
Yeah, and Rob, I think, I don't know if we've done it yet in our 30 lives, but that's a topic I think we could spend a whole video on, just kind of talking about the pros and cons of KDP Select. And it's such a timely topic too. I know when I first started, I did it, and then I changed, and then I went back, and then I changed again. I've gone through multiple changes in theory with this. I know it's a constant change in flux, and I see that Dale has a couple comments there with a question down below too.
Right. Yeah. So Dale says, theory, page reads have increased, therefore the pool is getting tapped into more. Fewer people are possibly subscribing to it, therefore dropping the global select fund. So in other words, smaller pool, more pages read, just a higher demand on the system. And that makes sense. I think that seems most plausible. So we also have a question here from Josh. Do you, as an author, have to pay a fee to take advantage of the service? And no, it is not a fee, but you do have to be in the you do have to subscribe to the 90-day term, and you have to have your book exclusive to Amazon during that window. That is what will allow you to opt into the Unlimited program. And basically the fee would be the foregoing any sales on other platforms, basically. But there's no cost to be involved in that. Josh also has another question, which maybe we can address a little bit later. Josh, thanks for sending it out, and we can go over that. Actually, if you want, Jordan, we can kind of address that question now if you're up for it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Josh says, we spoke a while ago about his dark fantasy novel series, close to being finished. He's wondering if things like virtual sales, promotion, or festivals are viable at all. I'll copy this down here.
Okay.
And let's see. So Josh, this is a great question. Thank you for rating in, and folks out there, we're happy to answer questions. We appreciate it and welcome these. So you want us to address them on the live stream, we will do our very best. So wondering if things like virtual sales, promotions, or festivals are viable at all. I've read about people having success selling their books online for low prices and having large discussions with other readers through Zoom. Would you recommend any of this? And I'll put the second half of that question in there because it looks like there is a a limit to the number of characters I'm allowed in here. So Jordan, what's your thought?
Yeah, my first impression with this is I definitely think it's something that could work. You think about, people, businesses using webinars to sell their digital products. That's very common. I think this could be something very similar to that. I think I would want to attend a few. If I was going to run it, I would want to see if join other authors and see how they're doing it, or maybe there's blog posts or other videos out there that kind of demonstrate specifically, best practices with doing that. I would just be curious about the steps and how to run it and all those details and whatnot. But yeah, I certainly think it's something that could work. People do in-person launch parties, and a little bit of what we're going to be talking about right here is a lot of the stuff we do is this online atmosphere. It's not as much of the in-person stuff. Now that can be good. It can be a good part of a launch. But yeah, especially right now, if you're thinking, people are used to Zoom. People are using Zoom all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So doing something like this and saying, hey guys, I'm going to have a virtual sales promotion. I love that idea. I think it's great because it's something that it's not going to be totally out of left field, especially right now, to do something like that. It's not going to be as hard as it would have been before. Before you probably would have had a lot of people, Josh, being like, what's Zoom? How do I join? Now a lot of those people are familiar with that. So, I actually really like that idea.
Yeah, I'd like to concur with your sentiments there, Jordan.
I was just a little excited by that. That's a great question, Josh.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we will also be talking about some of these different things that people are doing. I'll say one of the advantages too to writing longer novels is you would have the content is going to be longer, so you have more opportunity to create kind of serial content based on that. Depending on how you have the book set up, you can kind of, if you wanted to have like reading parties, for example, you can end on a cliffhanger and get people to tune in, to the next chapter or to the next section or something. I think it could be a pretty good way to foster some engagement, and people who want to support your work, people who are maybe not interested in waiting, for 2 weeks or 2 months to hear you read off the whole story. You're like, man, I'm hooked. I want to know, where can I get my copy right away and purchase it, so you can build a little momentum on that front. And I agree also with you, Jordan, that now is the time people are pretty understanding and gracious and flexible, and they're getting more familiar with some of these teleconferencing options out there, and remote options out there. So all potentially a good idea, and way to think outside of the box, and worth looking into for sure. So, okay. Anyway, did you have anything else you wanted to say there?
I was just going to say, if Josh, if you're watching this right now, you've read about other people having success. If you want to post those links into the comments, post some links to some of those articles or some of those success stories, that would be great, for us to be able to see that, but also for other people that are watching right now are going to stumble upon this later. So if you have them up, or if you could find them real quick, that'd be great. If not, that's fine. But I just thought that would be, a cool addition.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. If you're willing, Jordan or Josh, please share for me and Jordan. Okay, so let's come on.
And Rob, Josh asked one more question there. He said,
sure.
Should I worry about being hijacked? And would that make for good promotion? Maybe, I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily something you should be worried about. I know Zoom's already adding new controls onto their platform. I read about that the other day, and I've seen it myself. You have to actually admit people now. If someone is popping on your call, even if it's someone you invited, you have to click a little button and say admit. So not as much fear on being hijacked anymore. They did have a lot of trouble with that. They just expanded so quick. They never expected probably as many people to use it. So I totally understand from their perspective, but I wouldn't worry about that now.
Yeah, and I would say as well, this may not be what you're getting at, but if your concern is about sort of people infringing on your work, I think it's it's not likely, because if you're doing story time with Josh, and reading the book yourself, or you're associating the content with you specifically, so I can't imagine that would be a big concern in terms of somebody else downloading it or redistributing it for their own purposes, or something like that. And that's partly why we talk about building a platform and having a followership who is interested in you specifically, because people who are not willing or interested in finding you and supporting you specifically are going to want to do that. And the people who aren't, they're probably not going to be part of your core group anyway. So even if, one of your followers says, hey, on such and such website, I can go and, I don't know, BitTorrent a copy of your book. They're probably not, if they have some affinity for you, if they have some connection and they want to do that. Like, I'm not going to download a pirated copy of, Jordan's book or of, any colleague's book, of Dale's book or of your book, Josh, because I have a relationship there and I don't want to do that. And, so the hope is to develop that followership and not worry so much about the hangers on, the people who might be inclined to do something dubious. Because the reality is there are tons of free books out there already that aren't being read, So if you have people who are willing to read your book, that's a good thing, and that it's not typically an issue, especially for authors just starting out who don't have that followership built up just yet, to have people, pirating and reading their books because, they're just trying to get noticed to begin with.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Anyway, so let us go back. Okay, so the KENP is down 5%. Kindle is also enforcing stricter rules around COVID specific titles. So if anybody out there is interested in kind of jumping on the current situation and creating content that has to do with medical advice or information on disease prevention or recovery or that kind of thing, just be aware that in its sometimes opaque way, Amazon is seemingly unilaterally removing some of those titles. And I imagine that the idea is to prevent the spread of misinformation if people are putting out blatantly incorrect information which may be harmful to people, particularly people who might be sick or injured or something like that. They want to limit their liability and also, make sure that people have access to only good information. So just be mindful of the fact that there are titles being taken down. So if you're just trying to cash in on, the latest COVID title, Amazon may review it and decide that is not something that is in the they're going to allow on their platform.
And I think I'm glad you put that there, Rob, because I think that's such an important consideration. We talk a lot about not wanting to get on Amazon's bad side, and something like this where it's just kind of a shot in the dark. Maybe your book could blow up and do well. In this case, if you're writing about something like that, I don't know, but you're running a risk of having Amazon just be like, we're not going to deal with that, and then they just ban your account. It's a drop in a bucket for them to do that. Yeah, it might hurt you, but for Amazon's sake, it's better for their overall platform and their customers just to ban. But yeah, I just wouldn't. It's not something I would do. We don't recommend that for sure. Even just messing with it. If it's questionable, don't do it. Right.
Exactly. It's and unless you have rock solid credentials and you're willing to go to bat and fight, if you are a currently practicing epidemiologist or something, then maybe you might have a stronger leg to stand on than if you are, Joe author who's never published before and doesn't have the good standing to be judged in favor of if there's a dispute. So okay. So another thing that seems to be going on right now, children's book engagement is up, and that there are pretty obvious reasons. I would say for that, kids are home generally, and parents are looking for things to occupy their kids. Their kids are maybe reading more now at home rather than in their classrooms, and that's children's books, audiobooks. I'm sure also certain types of games or online programs for children, but there is an increased desire and market now for children's content.
Yep.
Cool. So let's see. Moving on. Another thing that seems to be the case: independent bookstores are more at risk. So the local brick and mortar stores that maybe are in your town or places that you like to visit, they're going to be hurting more. They probably don't have as much capital to deal with loss of foot traffic in the way that a bigger company might. They might be able to weather the storm if you are Barnes and Noble, but if you are ABC bookstore over in, on Main Street in your town, then you might be struggling now. So if that's part of your marketing strategy, if that's something that you were banking on, obviously with people being disallowed to go out and shop in many cases in these non-essential institutions, then that's going to have an effect on your bottom line and the ability for you to make those sales.
Yep.
Okay, so one other thing that I will mention, and this is something we've maybe touched on before, and that is, as an independent author, you would think that your allegiance, or maybe not allegiance, but that your interests are aligned with independent bookstores, but that is not the case. I won't belabor it too much, but just to say that independent bookstores have fixed overheads that they have to meet. So they're really interested in content that is going to move the needle for them, and that's going to generate sales and generate revenue. And if you are starting out small time author, and you've only sold a couple of books and your projections are not very strong, then it can be very hard to compete for shelf space versus Harry Potter or whoever that is that's currently popular. So just know that those are considerations for independent bookstores. They may want you to succeed, but they have bottom lines as well that they're working on. There are different things that people can be doing, having books available on layaway, purchasing author copies and making them available, at no cost to authors. So, or rather to their local bookstores, like, hey, if you keep it on the bookshelf, you get this much, and I'll take this much of the sale, but you don't have to pay anything up front. There are different strategies. So at some point later, we can talk about that if that's something people are interested in, some of the different things I've seen. But I just want to mention that as indie authors, our success is not necessarily contingent on whether the local independent bookstore is able to stay in business. Certainly, there are many of those that we love and we want them to stay in business and want them to stay successful. But your success is not tied in the same way to them as it is to other institutions potentially. Okay, so let's see. Moving on, another bit of information I came across: LSC Communication, which is one of the largest distributors in the country. They declare bankruptcy. They file for bankruptcy anyway, and so that's ongoing. So it's certainly having an effect. The lack of availability for people to actually go out and make sales that they might have been making before, or for businesses to function in non-essential capacities, it's certainly having an effect on some parts of the publishing industry. So, those are part of the sort of landscape. And the next thing is market variability. There's another article that I came across, and it said that basically sales were more or less flat. I think it was, within 1% of sales last year, actually up a little bit. But that will vary week to week. There's no telling what's going to happen, next week. Obviously, the impact is going to be a little bit backloaded here of what's going on. So sales in the first couple of months, when there wasn't this situation going on, may not have been as effective versus now, when there are, again, non-essential businesses in many cases are not able to keep their doors open, and people are encouraged to not patronize non-essential services. So we'll see what happens overall as time goes on. But there is variability already that we can see. There are certain genres that seem to be doing well. In terms of nonfiction, things like crossword puzzles are actually seeing increases in sales, and then sort of artistic and creative works tend to be selling a little bit better. But then things like diet books, are not selling as well, and business books, for whatever reason, aren't selling as well. People aren't able to engage in their business, I presume. So some of those motivational books don't seem to be selling as well. On the other hand, fiction is up overall. And certain genres of fiction tend to be doing better. Obviously, we mentioned children's books; they tend to be up. So there are different trends. It's not whatever answer that we give. If we said yes, you should delay your launch, or no, you shouldn't delay your launch. Before we are able to give anything that has some degree of meaningfulness, we'd have to ask other things. What specifically, what genre are you publishing in? How much of your sales are going to be contingent on things like local bookstores? How much are what part of the country are you in? There's geographic variability in where those sales are being generated. Some places are kind of more red zones and not as affected or as highly affected, and so sales may be that much more difficult. Other places are closer to yellow or or even green zones, so it's easier for people to get out and perform commerce and do whatever it is that they're responsible for doing in their work life, and so they have that money to spend. So anyway, that's the big picture. It's just some market variability. Do you have anything you wanted to say on that, Jordan?
Nope, nothing to add.
Okay, cool. All right. So how authors and publishers are responding. So here are some ideas that people are utilizing, different companies that we've read about. So one of them, there are some of the big publishers are easing library restrictions. So during the first 8 weeks, and this is something I learned just as a result of this article I came across, there is a limit of 1 ebook per library in I guess certain cases or many cases. And that is to, I guess, increase demand for people to actually go out and purchase the book. They don't want a million ebooks going out there and people aren't going to buy it. So they're like, hey, if I'm going to have to wait 2 months or 4 months or whatever for the 50 people ahead of me online at the library for this one digital copy, then I will, I'll just spend the $4 or $10 to get it. So they're easing of library restrictions. So publishers in some cases are making their books available, offering more licenses to libraries, so you can log into your local library and access books that you wouldn't otherwise. So I think that's kind of cool.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah. There is a number of authors and rights holders are allowing reading on social media. J.K. Rowling, for example, and Neil Gaiman. I saw a Twitter post from Neil Gaiman, basically giving carte blanche to I think it was another someone of note, but basically, if you want to read any of his books to kids online, and follow along, have them follow along, and be able to have that kind of story time with so and so. Neil said, "Okay, all good. You have permission."
That's great.
Typically the agreements, the copyright agreements and the rights holding agreements don't allow for that sort of unauthorized reproduction. But in this case, many authors and creators are saying, hey, all good. Let's get those stories out there and help people be entertained and pass the time. Cool. Another thing, and this is something we kind of talked about earlier with Josh, reading your own work on social media, story time hours. So it works, I think, really well if you have good, or if you have content maybe with those sort of cliffhangers or serial content that you can read a chapter at a time or a few pages at a time or something like that, and then maybe you can have discussions or question and answer sessions or just kind of social time. If you have a social media presence, this could be something that that appeals to you. And some authors are already out there doing that to kind of keep up with their fans and followers and let them know that they are there for them and still kind of try and spend time, even if it's not FaceTime together. Another related idea, authors may host virtual book clubs. So even if you are, you're not reading your own book. So if Jordan or I says, hey, everybody, next week we're going to be reading, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And let's talk about it. We'll bring some notes and we'll chat a little and answer some questions, share some thoughts. That could be something that's fun. Maybe it could be a Zoom thing. Maybe it can be invite only. Maybe, you can open it up for those Q&As at various points and people can kind of have the floor. And, there are different ways that you can do it. I think your recommendation earlier, Jordan, to see what people are doing already and what seems to be working and resonating with people is a good one. Just do a little bit of research into what's out there, market research into the creative field. But that's another idea to increase engagement. Obviously, when you're not able to meet people and do like in-person book signings or speaking events or that kind of thing. Let's see. Another thing, discounted books and shipping. So I think there are some suppliers, some distributors, some bookstores who are making their books available. Obviously, places like Amazon, they've prioritized essential goods, but there are other places that are selling books still and that don't have as many essential goods that they're trying to prioritize. And so they're still working and they're offering, discounts on their content, 5% off, 10% off, whatever makes sense. If you're an author yourself and you have content, author copies, you can make these books available as well. And, that could be something free. Hey, yeah, limited time only for the price of, for retail price, I'm going to offer free shipping and an assigned copy. I'll make it out to whoever you want it to be made out to, something like that could be a strategy while we are doing the distancing recommendations. Anything you wanted to say about any of that, Jordan?
Nope.
All righty. So another thing that's kind of cool I found out about, that's Audible Library, stories.audible.com for anybody who is just listening on audio. And it's mainly children's books, but it's you don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything really. Just go on to this website, and you can listen to different renditions of famous books, the Winnie the Pooh books, or I think Harry Potter. The first book in the series is available for free. So just another kind of cool thing that bigger publishers and bigger creators are doing for kids in this case to help them engage with books and foster that love of learning, love of reading, and love of storytelling. All right, moving on. What can authors do? So just some general recommendations here. Keep writing, double down on your positive habits. We talked about this a little bit at the top of the program here, what we're doing to kind of stay positive and stay active and, feel good. But, this is a good opportunity. A lot of authors are introverts anyway. So having the opportunity to do that without social obligations could allow for increased creativity, increased productivity, and being able to kind of tap into what you love to do anyway. And did you have anything you wanted to say on that, Jordan?
No, I think just a big part of that is just set goals when you can. Don't set just overarching, huge goals that it's going to be hard for you to reach during this time.
Mm-hmm.
But think about, double down on some positive habits. If you do spend time writing every day, keep doing that. If you do have more time now, spend more time writing. Work on a big project. Just maybe undertake something new. I think at the end of this, if we can use it as an opportunity, if we could have used that time as an opportunity, I think we're going to be better off.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't want to waste the time. I think that's important to think about.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Cool. All right. So another thing that authors can do, moving on, you can potentially pivot to related topics. Things like do-it-yourself, projects. Like, are you good at something that maybe you never thought about writing about? Are you a woodworker or, good with basic home repair or, something like that? Maybe produce some content that is going to help, home skills, child raising related content. Some of these are things that people are going to be interested in during, for as long as the situation is here, but potentially after as well. And so, if you're kind of not certain about what your next topic was going to be, or you were navigating among different options, if you're a creator, maybe you can create some information and content related to things that people suddenly have an increased interest in.
Yeah, I think this can work especially well, Rob. Yeah, if you're in that stage of writing and creating that you're like, I'm not sure where I wanted to jump to next. This can be a huge opportunity for you. But if you're in the space and maybe you already have a brand and you already have maybe you have a couple books, or you're already at the point where you're like, I know what I'm going to write about. Think about how you can work that in, especially if you're going to launch during this time or even in the next few months. Think about how you can just relate it to what people are doing, and you don't necessarily have to relate. If you've already done your book and you're already at that point, you don't have to go back in and change your book content.
Mm-hmm.
But just think about the different ways that you're going to be marketing the book. Maybe
Right.
There are different things you can do. You can take some of the ideas that we're sharing, some of the ideas we already talked about, such as having a virtual book launch. And those things could very well work for you. So think about ways that you can reach people where they're at right now, and how you can help them. That's really what I'm trying to do for some of my next steps. You really have that thought in my mind consistently. Okay, people are in a different place right now. What do they really need? How can I and what I'm doing help them and be there for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. So another thing that's sort of related, think about post-COVID topics. So hopefully this will not last forever, and this too shall pass. So what are people going to be interested in afterward? Finding new careers potentially, general preparedness, food preparation, and being being ready for any sort of emergency that might come up. Pandemic fiction, might be of interest. People are going to be looking at kind of a way to make sense of what happened through a storytelling medium potentially. So if that's a topic that you're capable of, maybe start thinking about that, preparing for that, getting ready for what comes next. Not just what you can do to capitalize on it right now, but the after effects, and then retrospectives as well. How do different people handle it? How do different industries handle it? What systems in place prove to be most helpful or beneficial if, for various types of businesses or that kind of thing. So something that gives people an opportunity to learn from whatever challenges they have gone through. That could be really helpful. Because you have a real-time case study of, okay, here's a situation that maybe none of us were thinking that we find ourselves in. How do we learn from it, and what can we take from it to make the best of it?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. Okay, so the big question: should I delay my launch? So yes or no, Jordan? Should I delay my launch?
No.
Just kidding.
No.
Yeah, just kidding.
Yes or no?
Just kidding. Yeah, no. So if you that would probably be my answer too. If you had to put my feet to the fire. But first couple of questions I would ask: what's your goal? How do you aim to generate sales? Where are you going to be generating sales? Is this something that's going to be traditionally marketed, and you have a national bookstore set up? Then yeah, these Barnes and Nobles across the country and Borders and wherever, Books A Million, they don't have anybody touring right now. This isn't something that you can do. So obviously that's going to impact what you're trying to accomplish. Are you seeing yourself doing lots of speaking gigs and selling author copies? Maybe that's going to be more difficult right now. On the other hand, many of the authors that we work with, they're selling largely online. We've talked about the benefit of having a global market. That's still in place. The internet is still here. We're all fortunate to have these mobile devices and e-readers and so forth, so we can access this content. If that's part of your strategy, or if that was a core part of your strategy to begin with, then that's going to impact whether it makes sense to delay or not. In that case, probably it doesn't make sense. Can we read the tea leaves at all? So I will say the argument against it for an indie author is, there is this uncertainty. People are tightening their belts. A lot of the major publishers are delaying the launches of their books. And there is, just a general level of uncertainty, depending on the topic, again, that you're interested in. Right now, if there are dips in your genre, if people aren't reading, buying diet books, if people aren't doing motivational books, then if that's your book, then maybe now is not the time to launch and try and buck the trend. On the other hand, if there are, other types of genres or places where you're looking to sell, then now might not be a problem. So that's, the answer, unfortunately or fortunately, is, it depends. Should we publish? Should we hold off on publishing? A lot of different factors go in, but it seemed like you maybe had some other thoughts, Jordan, and I know you've thought about this for yourself because you're creating some content. So where are you at now?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's such a tough question to answer. It's always different when it's your own stuff too. You really do have to make that own judgment for yourself, kind of based on what you're feeling and what your research is. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't, thought about this, if I was launching it during the time when all of this started, maybe a month ago, I feel for the people that maybe had things booked, different things going on, even online situations. People were in a different place, that we weren't even in a lockdown yet. It was in this mode of, there was chaos. Mm-hmm. I think it would have been tough to launch during that time. But I think people, in some ways are settling into this for however long we're going to be in this. If I was to launch a book, even right now, even within the next couple of weeks, I would feel good personally about doing that. Mm-hmm. Like we said, we do a lot of this stuff online. Mm-hmm. I've done in-person book launches before, and they can be a good part of a book launch, but they're not a huge part of sales. and generating that, that launch push. And like I said, of course it can help, but it isn't a huge part of that. A lot of we suggest doing and what I do myself is in the online sphere with ads, social media, sharing things to an email list, and all of that. So it definitely, it's summing it all up, it's a tough question to answer. Like Rob said, it depends on genre. But for me personally, I wouldn't let it stop me. I'm building out some content right now that I'm going to be hopefully launching. I have the outline, so we'll see. I like to pick something, write an outline, and get going with it. So maybe in the next couple months we'll see. But I'm not letting this situation derail me or stop me. I'm using it as a time to, okay, how can exactly what we were just talking about? How can I work this into what people are looking at and reading about and really need right now? How can I really provide and help my audience? And I think we always should be asking ourselves that question. And I think this time just gives us the opportunity to seriously consider that. And I think we can do well if we are there and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It was a long answer, but it's tough, but yeah.
No, it's good, and it's a long answer for a reason, and the reason is it's not something that you can just say yes or no. It's not. It's just like some of these other questions that we get. Should I enroll in Kindle Unlimited? Well, on the aggregate, maybe yes, maybe no. Like we need more information. We need to be able to say it's not like asking. Should I produce a print and audio edition if I have the funds for it? The answer is an easy yes, because you have an audience in those different platforms. But yeah, it is tricky. It's tough. I'm sympathetic, and I'm sort of that opinion as well. I think people are adjusting to a new normal. It's kind of like habit development. They say after 21 days or 30 days or 45 days or something, people just kind of settle in and things become more familiar to them, and it just becomes a part of their routine. So, whatever it is that we're going through, I think it's starting to become a little bit more normal. People are a little bit less chaotic. They have a sense of what they're up to. And the other thing that I keep coming back to is we have now effectively just a huge increase in the audience or in the mind space or the availability of mental space for content. People are looking for it. People are more active with it. People are starting to get bored with some of their familiar things and looking for new information and new material to engage with. And, potentially that can be something that you are doing. And as you mentioned, a lot of our launch is geared toward giving your book the best opportunity it can to find its audience and, do some of these digital things, online advertising, building your email list, building your content marketing strategy. It's important for a lot of people, just being able to build that rapport through consistent, continual contact. And, all of that's still there. You still have WordPress, for your site. You can still log in to, Twitter and Facebook and engage with people there and, let them know of what you're up to and, that they're able to support you if they want to, because you're producing really good content and valuable content for them. So, all of that is still sort of in place, and we're fortunate for that. By virtue of having this digital business, this digital publishing arena, we're able to take advantage of some of these things that a traditional brick and mortar store or certain types of industries just can't. There's no way to do remote landscaping. There's no way to do remote bricklaying, but remote content creation, remote writing and reading and videos and all of these things, they're well within our reach. So yeah, that's kind of my sentiment and where we're at. Did you have any other thoughts that you wanted to wrap up with on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I was going to say one more thing just about genre specific. If you are in the diet book and the health and fitness niche in that area, I think you can still be creative and think of different ways. Even if you've already written the book and you were getting ready to launch it, you could use this time as write a blog post or something about how to stay healthy at home while you're stuck at home with kids or something like that. I mean, that's just a random idea, but I don't think that this time necessarily is going to completely lock out some genres. I mean, of course, it's going to be harder in a genre like travel where people aren't doing that as much, but maybe you've already written a book about that and you could delay it a few months and come out with some writings and some blog posts about, hey, let's plan for this. Let's plan a trip when we're done this. What are we going to do in the next like 6 months? I don't know. I think it's just, you can be creative with that. And, people are going to be, ready to go and ready to travel after this once they can again, I think. And some people won't, but other people will. The adventurous people, the people that want to do that, the people that probably are already interested in that travel genre anyway, may need some help. Okay, how am I going to get out of this? What does this whole thing look like? Maybe you can be the person that is going to provide them updates with the different airlines. Hey, this airline's super cheap right now. If you're looking for a trip, book it. They're booking for, they'll give free refunds if the flights are canceled. I don't know.
Right.
Things like that. You can be the person that's helping people out with that. So I think I don't think that something like this needs to stop all genres. I think you're just going to have to get creative to be able to make it work in your specific genre.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Regardless of what the general trends are, genre to genre, or the overall market, it's important to pay attention to those and not be foolhardy. But there's always a degree of gumption, that it takes. A lot of, most businesses fail. What's the statistic? Like 75%, within the first 5 years. So you're always taking a little bit of a leap of faith. And the question is, do you believe in it? Is this something that you're really committed to seeing work and make happen? If you've already created it, hopefully the answer is yes. And so yeah, start thinking laterally. Start thinking about different ways to take advantage of it. To again, not be foolhardy and try and fight against a really strong tide. But when there are limits, there are opportunities as well. Limits compel creativity, and so you have an opportunity to do new and interesting things. And if you're thinking about it in the right way, approaching it in the right way, there are going to be some big winners who come out of any sort of challenge, any sort of challenging situation, and and it could be you. And if you're motivated and feel like you believe in what you're doing, by all means, do what you can to make it so that you are one of those exceptions.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good way to wrap it up. And folks, thank you, Josh and Dale, for dropping in. Thank you, folks who leave comments and notes. We're always happy to receive them. The back and forth and the engagement is very welcome. So if there are things that you're interested in, that you're thinking about and want to know more about in the self-publishing landscape and what's going on currently or in general, leave us a comment or a question or reach out to us via the archangelinc.com website. And I think that's it. Anything else, Jordan?
No, I'm good. I enjoyed that one. That was good.
Awesome. Right on. Yeah. Have a good rest of your evening, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you folks next time.